All right, so welcome back. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Aldo Moro, and we have been looking at our midterm polls. Musa Dankwa was with us a while ago. He walked us through constituencies that are in danger. Most of the MPs there would have to be extremely careful what they do, and also looked at the bigger picture in terms of, regardless of who the MPP presents, whether it's going to be Alan or Bamia, how the NDC's presumed candidate, which is JM, is likely to fare amongst the two candidates. We're now back to the National Cathedral. Now, something happened yesterday. So, at long last, based on all the criticisms and all the, the talk and the complaints here and there, people complaining about the fact that there's no transparency with the National Cathedral, people saying that, look, the National Cathedral is being built on lies and dishonesty, etc., etc. Why did Dr. Mensa Otabil resign? What exactly is wrong? It tells us that there's something really happening within the Secretariat as far as the whole project is concerned. As we speak, the project is not happening because the contractors have left site. There's also a man who owns property there. His property has been taken away from him. Landed property, he was given some landed property to replace what he's lost, but he can't access it because some persons within government, as Ablako has said, are interested in that. So there's all kinds of things that are happening. And so the National Cathedral Secretariat has had to issue a statement to set the record straight on most of these issues that have been raised. One, and the other key issue which has to do with the funding, the funding in terms of, how much is the state going to shoulder and how much are private citizens and the Christian community going to be contributing to the National Cathedral. All those matters have been stated in the in the statement that was issued by the Secretariat, and you would shortly see it boldly, showing on the screens here at Metro TV. It says National Cathedral of Ghana press release, National Cathedral Matters Arising. It's a 4-page document. I can't read everything. It's a 7-page document. Thank you very much for that. So I can't read everything, but maybe let me look at just the introduction. This says the National Cathedral represents a key moment in our national life. As the President explains it, as a deeply religious people, the National Cathedral provides a historic opportunity to put God at the center of our nation's affairs and serves as a symbol of our eternal and continuous gratitude to Him for the favors that He continues to shower and bestow on our nation. Now, it's an auditorium space of 5,000, expandable to 15,000 chapels and prayer rooms. It goes on and on and on and on and on. Now, there's a part which I'm sure most of you will be more than happy to hear, the part about Dr. Mensa Otabil. Now, it says, the board of trustees had to be registered as directors of the company. A member of the trustees, Dr. Mensa Otabil, the general overseer of the International Central Gospel Church, had indicated that he couldn't give the needed attention to the project, so he didn't even register. That's what the National Cathedral Secretariat is telling us. So, Dr. Mensa Otabil did not resign from the board, as been alleged, but excused himself at some point of registration of the directors in July 2019. Now, for the avoidance of all doubt, Dr. Otabil has not been a member of the board or trustee since July 2019. Dr. Mensa Otabil nonetheless remains actively interested in the project and continues to share his views on strategy with the Secretariat. It says the continuous use of his name and pictures on the website and publications was an administrative lapse by the Secretariat. Now, so here, the status of the construction that I've told you already, they've explained why things are the way they are. So basically, monies aren't coming in. The funding is not happening. And so that's why the contractors have had to leave site. Then, the statement explains in greater detail what is happening with the funding. Now, it goes ahead to talk about, and in conclusion, throughout the 65 years of our nationhood, a number of long-term infrastructure projects have often been discussed without the dispassionate analysis of cost and long-term value. So they're saying that all this talk about why is it costing 2.8 billion cities, 350 million, blah, 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 blah. It's always been with us, our politics. Usually when projects start, people always look at the cost, won't look at value. So it's not surprising. And it says, this historic and game-changing project The National Cathedral of Ghana deserves a more elevated national conversation on this, on its nature, funding, and relevance than has been the case so far. The Secretariat of the National Cathedral commits to this elevated discussion of the project and to an open and transparent process of communication to achieve this. And it says, please direct all requests for information to the executive director, blah, blah. It goes on and on. Now, this is signed by Dr. Paul Opoku Mensah, Executive Director, National Cathedral of Ghana. He is the man whose picture is being shown beautifully on the screens. Apostle Professor Opoku Enyina, he's the chairman of the Church of Pentecost. He's the chairperson. So that's his picture. So I'm walking through.
He's the former chair.
Oh, he's a former chair, right. Now, these are the board of trustees. Now, you also have Archbishop Charles Palmer Buckle, Metropolitan Catholic Archbishop, Cape Coast. He's the vice chairman. He's also one of the board of trustees. And then you have the Most Reverend Bishop Justice Ofe Akrofi, who is the Anglican Archbishop Emeritus. He's also a member of the board of trustees. Now, that's second. Now, number 3, the Right Reverend Professor Emmanuel Mate, former moderator of this Presbyterian Church. He's also a member of the trustees. Now, he is famously known as the Nyansafo Ewahe man. You know, it's very, very famous known for that. Now, Most Reverend T.K. Awotwe Pratt is the presiding bishop of the Methodist Church, also a member. And then number 5, you have Reverend Dr. Frimpong Manso, General Superintendent, Assemblies of God. He's also a member. And then number 6, you have the Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams. Yeah, he's popularly called the Papa. You know, the Papa. Yeah, he's a big man. Presiding Archbishop and General Overseer of the Action Chapel Church here in Accra. And also Executive Director. And then you have next Executive Director of Salt and Light Ministries, member Doug Hayward Mills. So these are the board of trustees, right? And then Joyce Aye. Yes, Joyce Aye. Yeah, Madam Joyce Aye is also a member of the board of trustees. And then you also have Reverend Eastwood Anaba. He's the founder and president of the Eastwood Anaba Ministries. He's also a member. And then who's next? There's another gentleman here. That's Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng, founder of Power Chapel Worldwide. He's also a member and actually the secretary of the board. And then you have Dr. Paul Opoku Mensah. He is the executive director and also a consultant. So that's about it for the board of trustees. So let me start with Beatrice. I'll start. Okay,
I thought you start with those.
Because he speaks for government. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. No, it makes sense. You speak for government. No, you speak for government. No, you speak for government.
I started on the next one.
No, you speak for government. So that's fine.
No, let me choose that. Let me choose that.
Why don't you speak for government again?
I do speak for government, definitely. But I think that because you read the statement from government, let's hear Beatrice.
Really? Well, Beatrice doesn't mind anyway. I mean, you know, she can always come back. Anyway, so you've read the Beatrice. You've read the statement or the press release by the National Cathedral Secretariat. What do you make of it?
I think that they should not have released the statement.
Really?
Yes.
With all the rancor,
because I believe that
here and there?
I believe that the statement failed to appreciate the times we are in. I believe the statement does not take into consideration the numerous concerns that have raised. And I also believe that the board of directors or the board of trustees in the instant matter are so respected that they should not allow government to drag them into this naked partisanship and no direction that the government has taken as it relates to this cathedral. And this is where I say that Dr. Bawumia's failure has once again been manifested with this whole cathedral matter.
Because, how does it come in?
Yes, so let me show you.
Okay.
For those of us with backgrounds in economics,
okay,
the fundamental principle based on which we make economic decisions is that human needs are insatiable and human wants are just uncountable. And because human wants are insatiable and resources are scarce, every serious economist worth his salt would always resort to what we call scale of preference in making any decision whatsoever. And so when you have a country like ours, where poverty is on the increase for the first time in 25 years, if you have a country like ours, where this government has not built a single regional or district hospital, if you have a country like ours, where the government has not been able to construct schools, if you have a country like ours, where students are being asked not to be fed because the government cannot afford to pay for school feeding program, if you have a country like ours, where young people cannot provide basic necessities of life, and all these needs and wants are on the table, what you do is that for any serious economist who even knows the law of demand and supply, what you do first is to do what we call a scale of preference. And you say that because the needs are a lot, which ones do we solve with the limited resources we have? And I mean, I was on SU evangelism secretary.
I see. You have the scripture union.
Yes, and I'm a very spiritual person.
Okay, all right.
And
I'm finding out for the first time.
oh yes, I'm very spiritual. And
Gamma said, no, pull me.
no, I'm very spiritual. I
Yes.
take my Christian life very serious.
Yeah, true.
But the God I know and I have come to believe in the Bible would never ask for a building at the expense of lives being lost by women who go in fulfillment of his command to give
but
birth.
God is not asking that you build
Let me land.
Okay.
In fulfillment of his command that we should reproduce, that a woman's attempt to give birth because of lack of birth and lack of hospital loses her life and the child, that God will not be interested in the building.
Okay.
That God will not be interested in the place where children who have been brought forth will have to lie on their belly, and then so much money under the guise of illegality and opacity will be given to some individuals without competitive standard. I don't think that God will be interested in buildings, because that God has told us in the New Testament that he dwells in the heart of men, not in buildings. That is why in the last days, he will say that you mention my name to perform miracles, but I do not know you. And the irony is that it is President Nanado who wants to build a cathedral. President Nanado is about the only leader who has exhibited a lot of unchristian character. It was President Nanado under whose watch 8 people lost their lives. That is most unchristian. That God will not accept a cathedral from such a man. It was under President Nanado that the lives of people became worse. That God will not accept a cathedral from that man. And so this whole blackmailing or trying to say that because we're a Christian state, we are trying to do something for God and people are against it, I think that is just a religious blackmail. And none of us should fall to it, because there are churches in Ghana which has a capacity more than the cathedral that we are seeking to build. The cathedral is about 5,000 seater, which can be expandable to 15,000, and we have churches that have built 25,000 seater. And so if it's about space to do something, there are churches in Ghana with bigger spaces. And so I am saying that much as, and you see, when I read the statement from the Secretariat, it appears to me that the president made his pledge to God personally and only sought to model it under the Notre Dame.
How so?
Because for whatever purposes the statement say the cathedral will achieve, if you Google the Notre Dame today, that is what the Notre Dame was actually set out. And it's reflected that this president was the first world leader to have tweeted when the Notre Dame incident happened. And so if you take your inspiration from the Notre Dame Cathedral, I mean from the statements as I understand, the president ought to further go forward with his research at the time he was making the pledge to God, that it took 97 years for the cathedral, Notre Dame to be built. And so with France, with all its resources, took 97 years, and you want to take 5, 6, 8 years to build a cathedral because you made a pledge to God. I think that it's about time the president, and for that matter, the MPP government, take Ghanaians serious. Because you see, it is very sad that we live in a country where this government is running a procurement economy. Per Section 40 of the Procurement Act, 2003, and because of time, I wouldn't read it. For a contract to go through sole sourcing, there are some specific criteria that contract must meet. Mm-hmm. The supplier or the service must be the only supplier or person who can provide that service.
Condition precedent.
Condition precedent. Mm-hmm. Is it the case that for the cathedral, it is only David Ajayi who in the whole world can provide that service? That is the first question that the government has failed to answer. Mm-hmm. It says that good must be urgent. What is the urgency in building a cathedral? For which reason the Section 40 of the Procurement Act ought to be breached this way? And I know that no God will be interested in the cathedral that is built on illegality. Because at every time, God was the first person to tell us to obey the commandments and to obey laws and set laws for humans to follow. And so, the government must come again. The cathedral cannot be the priority of priorities of government. More, as we sit today, I am so sad that we live in the country. Do you know that Accra is the most expensive city in Africa and about the world? Mm. Do you know that Ghana's currency is the worst performing currency in the world? Mm-hmm. Do you know that the rate at which our cedi is depreciating, we are not experiencing that in other countries? Inflation is all-time high. Unemployment is all-time high. Mm-hmm. There are very germane and basic needs. Mm-hmm. And if government decides to spend the resources of this nation, I think that it should be into other sectors. Okay. And if cathedrals, there are cathedrals which were built over 32 years, some even over 500 years. If you want to build a cathedral, you have to be able to buy in, get the buy-in of everybody, because in 2024, you'll be losing your election. Right. And so when you go, what happens to that? Resources gone down the drain. Mm. And the second illegality is that no architect is paid the full amount before the project is finally executed. Mm. Because if you look at the practice and even the law governing the architect, they can take up to about 10% of the value. Right. Now, when they submit the drawing, you have to pay them about 4%. Okay. You pay David Ajayi $6 million cash. Mm-hmm. For drawings. Right. You further paid him $23 million again at the time when there has been no block laid. So what if David Ajayi dies tomorrow? The $23 million
it would have gone waste.
It will go waste.
Hang on a minute with that thought. Let me quickly speak to Reverend Tete Jangma. Now, Reverend Tete Jangma is the senior pastor, True Vine Charismatic Church International. He's joined us for some quick thoughts on this National Cathedral conversation. Big conversations indeed. Reverend Tete Jangma, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Pages on Metro Television.
Yeah, good morning as well.
Right. Now, let me just generally pick your thoughts on this whole idea that the president makes a personal pledge, a personal commitment to God, and says, now that you have made me win the 2016 elections and president in 2017, I want to thank you. I want to say a big thanks to you by building for you a national cathedral. Now, this national cathedral is going to be a collaboration between the private sector, Christian community, and the state. The state's job is only to provide land, a secretariat, and some seed money, and also an architect. And the state has produced an architect in the name of David Ajayi. What do you make of this?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I must mention that many policies that have been achieved the world over,
Reverend, if you can speak up a little bit, sir.
I will.
Thank you.
I must mention that many projects that have been achieved the world over, some started as personal objectives, some started as personal desires,
Okay.
and then they acquired a national character and became a part of the national institution. If you look at Singapore, their desire to have cleanliness, neatness must have started from an individual, and later on the nation embraced it. So there's nothing wrong with something starting from a personal perspective and the thing being successfully sold as a national objective, particularly if it has benefits that can be shared societally. Secondly, in the world we live, there will always be problems. There would always be challenges, economic problems, the cost of rent will be very high, cost of food will be very high, but that's why we have budgets. You may have a budget that apportions some money for recreation. Another budget apportions some money for some other thing. So if in your national plan you budget for certain things, you can do them at the time that you're supposed to do. But I think that the question that we are asking is whether this is the right time to do this and whether there are not other priorities. I must mention that it's possible to develop even in the presence of poor people. Because if you say you want to look at the poor, you will never build, even as a father. You will never build because you have to go and spend your money on the poor. So I would say that somebody will take the initiative, somebody will have the courage, somebody will have the boldness to start something. And if that person takes it and it is in the national interest, then definitely let's support him. There may be questions that are being legitimately raised by people from various walks of life, including the main opposition parties, and there's nothing wrong with it. These things are meant to bring back on track the incumbent administration so that they do things properly. We are told that the Minister of Finance will be appearing before Parliament, hopefully by Wednesday, to give an account of the way that they have expended money regarding this project of the National Cathedral. I think we have to be a little patient, wait and listen to the minister, whether there has been misappropriation of funds or not. I must say that if I look at various governments, they have had to achieve some things at very odd times. Let me pick Jerry Rawlings. When he came in as a military leader, and at that time the whole world, tended to reject that kind of leadership. He led people to haul cocoa from the villages, and he led the nation to go through a period of adversity where there were bushfires and farms were getting burned down and there was starvation in the country. But he led us out of the woods. When I pick the administration of Kufuor, he came to inherit a HIPIC, highly indebted poor country status of Ghana. But again, he also led us out of the woods. We may be in a situation now that may have been partly created by post-COVID, uh, effects, partly by Ukraine-Russian war, partly by imposition of e-levy, and various other things that we may be feeling now. We may say we're in the woods, but leadership is supposed to provide us that direction that will take us out of the woods. I am hopeful that we'll come out of the woods. So Ghana will not remain in the woods. And in conclusion, I must say, we can budget to cater for the poor and budget to build the cathedral. you cannot wait to finish one before you do the other. You can do that side by side.
But Reverend, I've heard some people say that if the president wants to build a cathedral for God, some say he's God, but I don't want to sound cynical, so for God, why can't the president raise his own funds to build a cathedral for God? Now, if we allow this thing where you say people have their personal ambitions that metamorphoses or transforms into a national vision, tomorrow we might have a Muslim president, we might have a traditionalist, we might have a Hindu, etc., etc. So he also comes and says, okay, I'm president, now I'm Hindu. I want to build the biggest shrine in Ghana, and I want to make it a national, whatever project, all hands on deck. And I'm going to use the taxpayers' money, whether you like it or not. I'm going to dip into the coffers and use that as seed money. And I determine how much is seed money anyway. It could be 40%, 30%, 50, 60% of the entire cost, and so on and so forth. So do you agree with those who say we must be careful with this thing where we say personal and then it transmogrifies into a national? Do you agree with those who say that?
Now, let me mention that there are events that, like I said, may start from an individual's perspective. But when it is sold out and a nation embraces it, then it can become a national objective. There's nothing absolutely wrong with it.
But Reverend, would you be fair to that person who may not share in the Christian faith, who would also say that I am a Buddhist? Yeah, I'm a Buddhist, and I want to build the biggest national shrine. I want to make it, because it's happened in the past. I mean, a certain president once upon a time was Christian. He said he wanted to build a cathedral, and the nation looked on whilst he used part of dipped his hands into the national kitty to build it. So why do you want to prevent me? Fairness.
Can I say this? There would always be divergent opinion in whatever we do. That's why the records of our election shows that maybe 51 point something percent votes for the incumbent, and then the rest, don't win.
Okay.
There would always be divergent opinion. I remember when the helm of affairs of this nation was at the Oksu Castle, and then there was the proposal to build a place to house, the offices of the president, vice president, as well as their residences. There was a lot of noise as regards whether that was the most expedient thing to be done. It has been done, and it's been beneficial to the nation.
Okay.
We would go on this tangent of debate interminably.
Right.
But at a stage, somebody must take an action. Somebody must take a decision. Whether the people don't want it and want to line up in the streets and demonstrate and oppose it, that's their right.
So Reverend, your point is the idea of building a national cathedral in itself is not bad, but we must watch the timing. The timing is what we need to watch.
We need to watch the timing. We need to look at how to allocate the resources.
Okay.
If within this period, those who are providing food, free food for those in basic schools, haven't been paid, we have to keep an eye on that.
All right.
If around this time national service personnel have difficulty in receiving their incomes, we have to keep an eye on that.
On them. Okay.
Once we are able to solve these things, we can build. Let me say this: development does not only mean food. You need to develop aesthetics. If I have to visit a country and they bring a brochure, I want the things that are most attractive on the brochure.
All right.
And an aspect of development is the aesthetics. If you go into a country that is a village setting, you don't want to return.
Okay.
But there must be development, physical development as well.
All right.
And if this president has chosen that I'm dedicating this building to the country and to God, why not?
All right. Thank you, Reverend. It's always a pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
That's Reverend Tete Jangma. He is one of the renowned pastors here in Ghana. Now, I don't know how we're going to do this. We have just 10 minutes to wrap up. So let me go to Palgrave. So Palgrave, I talked about the precedents I don't know whether you have the president's, you have anything to say about the president's, argument, which is we must be careful.
Well, yes, I do agree with you on the precedents, but really just to be able to say that the cathedral for a lot of Ghanaians is really a very sacred conversation because of the sacredness of who God is.
Okay.
I'm happy to see that around this table, Moro, you are a Muslim, I'm a Christian, and my very good sister,
Former head of the Scripture Union.
yes, who is an evangelism secretary.
Okay. Yes.
I've been a missionary for 22 years.
Oh, I
so
see. That's
clearly,
interesting.
you know
Yeah,
that
you mentioned it to me.
He's a man of God.
Cathedral is also very sacred. But I can appreciate that the timing is much of a concern. But Moro, you are aware that we run a political system in this country. And so at various stages of our political dispensation and our political leadership, you will need one leader to make a decision. And I do not think that the president has stated that he's going to complete the building of the cathedral in 8 years. I mean, he's clearly also stated that it's taking many years for a lot of cathedrals to be built, over 100 years. And so he's looking to be the one that would set the foundation. And many people that would come in the years to come would have an opportunity to build and contribute significantly to that. Nextly, as well, is the economic side of the cathedral. We are aware that all around the world, I mean, if you go to various countries, like you go to Rome, you go to America, you go to the Middle East, number of cathedrals, Cologne Cathedral, St. Paul's Lutheran Cathedral, all those cathedrals raising high level of money. I mean, close to about 5.5 billion euros in a year of investment that comes into it. We are aware as well that the unique characteristics of the National Cathedral that we want to have is to have an African Bible museum and to be able to really place our Christianity in context in terms of Africa, because especially for followers of Jesus, we are aware that at the time when he was being chased, the Holy Spirit revealed to his earthly parents and asked that they come into Africa, and they came into Egypt. And so clearly the tourist attraction that is going to bring into the continent of Africa the large number of people from various religious environments that would come in as tourists. It's something that we need to be able to look at the future of this cathedral. I think that we cannot displace the single majority of Christians who follow Christ and who also argue that, the timing might not necessarily be right. But we do agree that at various stages of our political regime, leadership must come to bear. And President has shown extreme leadership. He's not taking the entire country's resources to invest into the cathedral. And I must put on record that national service personnel have been paid, school feeding monies has been issued out. I'm aware of that on record. Last 2 weeks, lots of monies have been issued out. You can go to check and ask. You can go and ask. You can go to
97 pesos.
One of my
you can go. Lots of money.
Just a quick one. One of my technical producers, his uncle is actually a member of the NAPCO beneficiaries. He said they've not been paid for 6 months.
NAPCO.
Yeah. They've not been paid for 6 months.
So Moro, you see, let's
his
put
uncle, so it means a lot to him.
No, of course. It does mean a lot to me that my younger cousin as well is unemployed. But so the issues are married, and in as much as we are tackling all the issues in terms of unemployment, you are aware that we are about launching the Youth Start Initiative, which is going to be one of the most innovative employment scheme of having 1 million young people become entrepreneurial. I know that Beatrice is going to have some
you've not taken your mind off the bread and butter issues.
No, we've not taken our mind off the bread and butter issues at all. In this season as well, you look at, various issues that we have done. Hospitals that we have built, one district, one factory, infrastructure that we have brought in, road networks that we have brought in. All of those issues cannot be downplayed. Ambulances that we have brought in. All those issues cannot be downplayed. Absolutely. And so let's look at the issues very well. Okay. We appreciate the concerns of the Ghanaian people, and very much well, we are not misusing the funds that the Ghanaian people has betrothed to the good people in leadership. And then also it's important for us to also state very clearly and on record that yes, Dr. Menso Tabel has not been a part of the board of trustees, as you have stated, from July 2019. And so people should really also continually give reverence to whom reverence must be given. And if you look at the board of trustees of the National Cathedral, they've been selected very circumspectively because they represent their various unions from the Anglican community, from the Catholic community, from from the Methodist community, from the Presbyterian community, and clearly from the charismatic community. You see all these representatives that have come in, and I'm not sure that we would want to discredit or disdain their image and their integrity and the support that they are backing within. You're also aware that funds are being raised. I mean, beyond the seed money that government is giving, there are funds that are being raised all around the world. The African diasporans that are in the US and in other parts of the world are contributing significantly to this. So there's a holistic plan to ensure that Ghana moves forward in a number of policies that we bring in. And in conclusion, Moro, I know that time is almost up. In conclusion, the real goal as well is that when you make a political party policy, it comes back to become a government policy and then becomes a civic responsibility. And so government has not shared her responsibilities on issues that relates to
Max Spencer Tom from Volta Region says, sentiments. The complaints may be sentimental, other times they may be right. However, the opposition NDs have had the records of just opposing everything. The NDC in the past would oppose the building of the Jubilee House if it was going to be a personal or individualized. The president would have built it at his house anyway. This one says, oh, that's a long one. From a consent, I don't even have your name, so I can't read it. Obino Sualata says, why don't we channel the cathedral resources into solving the flooding menace since this is taking lives away, destroying property and other stuff? Akufo-Addo should give us a break with agenda priority of priorities. We need money to solve numerous challenges facing the country. This one here says that, good morning, Moro. Whether Alan Cash or Bamia or both in 2024, the NPP will lose massively to the NDC. But the NDC must be vigilant and ready to take power from the NPP in 2024 because of the desperation of this clueless, incompetent, and most corrupt government. As for the cathedral, only dictators or in modern times to use the taxpayers' money to build cathedral, which was promised God secretly and personally by Nanado from Yahuza, best teacher, Tamale Central constituency. Awal Mohammed Dusaini inside Akroso says, it's only in Ghana that workers are unable to be recruited, workers' salaries are unable to be upgraded by government due to hardship in the society, but the same government is able to raise an amount of $200 million to build a cathedral that's absolutely not needed at the moment. If this is not wickedness, then I don't know what it is. And then two more before we leave. A blueprint rise from Isika Duketan. The MPP as a party would knock down the survey, but one thing is clear, that the delegates know that the only committed, dedicated, and loyal person to lead the new patriotic party is, as the next general secretary, is Charles Bisu, and we're optimistic he's willing to give us an essence of breaking the 8. And somebody says he likes you. I like the woman presentation. Please, I want her to be my friend. I don't know, I'm not sure about. Anyway, Roxanne from Baku says, I think you're doing a great job for Mother Ghana. Keep it up, and may the good Lord make you great again. Roxanne from Baku. I have about 30 more. I can't read. I'm sorry. Next week I'll start reading the messages early. My name is Aldo Moro. Thanks for watching. I want to say, closing remarks. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. You want to come in? You started and he responded. Which is, I'm sorry. It's
the
just.
Bible says, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven. But he that doeth the will of the Lord, which is in heaven, killing people in an election, cannot be the will of the Lord.
I don't think that you would accredit the incident of the election to the president.
Thanks for watching. This has been another edition of Inside Pages. My name is Aldo Moro. Have a great Saturday morning. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.